direction, which is also called a bearing or an azimuth. I'm going to point it out directly in front of me, look out there and see what object I can walk to. In this case, it's going to be that big ponderosa pine tree out there about 100 yards. When I get to that pine tree, I'm going to redo this process all over again, from object to object, so that I continue on a straight line going east-southeast. It's always a good idea, before you venture into the woods away from your car, to get your bearings. In this case, we have an east-west running road. I'm going to be going to the south of this road. So if I get disoriented or lost, all I really have to do is go in a northerly direction to get back to my automobile or to get back to the road. If you take a few moments just to do this simple orientation before you leave, you're going to avoid getting lost. One of the absolute easiest ways to procure food out here, next to collecting insects, which I understand some of you may have some problems with, is with fish hooks. Whether it's fish or fowl, an assortment of fish hooks attached to leader with some weights in it is going to provide you a real good opportunity to put food in your stomach. Surgical tubing is another one of those multi-useful items that I put in my survival kit. There's a lot of uses for them. As a drinking straw, as a tourniquet. Some instructors like to put them in their kits as triggering devices for snares, but I put them in my survival kit for a whole different reason.
At a survival clinic recently, my wife scolded me for introducing my slingshot as a viable option for procuring food. It's way too complex for the majority of your audience, she said, and she was right. That is, until I figured out a way to simplify it. I reasoned that I could take the same two components that I used to revolutionize survival shelter construction, duct tape and zip ties, and make a pretty good slingshot. I discovered that I could make a pocket by overlapping the surgical tubing by approximately 4 inches and securing the ends with zip ties. Zip ties could also be used to secure the tubing to the 2 posts on the slingshot. From experience, I do recommend doubling the zip ties for added security, though. Another adaptation that I came up with a few years ago was adding a wrist brace. This allowed me to stretch the surgical tubing much further and hold it longer without overstressing my wrist. It made for a much more powerful wrist rocket, so powerful in fact that it spawned another idea. By shortening the height of my post, I created a slingshot that could shoot arrows. And in doing this, this would allow me to go after game much bigger than a rabbit. This is called an Hawaiian sling, also known as a poor man's spear gun. It would have served Tom Hanks' character well in the movie Castaway. They really pack a wallop.
This is a sail needle. I put one in my survival kit because it's really small, and 2, because if I have any equipment breakdowns out in the woods, I can use it to sew packs together or other equipment or clothing, and it works real well with a parachute inner core. Now, if I can just get that through there, mosquitoes in Panama are about as bad as anywhere you're going to find them on the planet. When I was attending training down there at the Tropical Survival School, we were covered from head to foot in protective gear to keep those little bloodsuckers from sucking us dry. Our instructors, on the other hand, were basically running around naked. When I asked them how they did that, they explained to me that when the mosquito comes calling, she's going to be buzzing around your ear to raise your blood pressure so she can get a real easy meal. So all I needed to learn how to do was ignore her when she came calling. So far I haven't figured out how to do that real well yet. So I still carry cutters around in my survival kit with me. You don't want to just put any kind of mirror in your survival kit. This is a very specific type of mirror made for one specific reason, so that you can signal an airplane that's miles away. It's actually a double laminated mirror that has a sighting hole through it. We're going to show you how that works in just a moment. But you can actually hit the pilot of an airplane several miles away right between the eyes with this. And that's significant, especially if you've been out here for a few days and your life is on the line. And finally a search airplane comes over. With a regular signal mirror, what you'd have to do is find the reflection of the sun, put it on your hand, use your fingers as a sighting mechanism so that you continue to keep that sun's reflection on there, and point it in the general direction of the airplane, and hopefully the airplane pilot will see that flash. With this signal mirror, however, I can in about 3 seconds get that sun's reflection, hit the airplane pilot several miles away right between the eyes. Find an open area as much as possible and then turn toward the sun. Find the reflection of the signal mirror down on the ground right in front of you, and then place your hand out in front like this. You'll see the reflection on your hand. Now look through the small circular opening in the signal mirror, and you'll see what is a small representation of the sun on your hand. You're going to want to keep that small dot of light in that round opening of your signal mirror. Now if I'm going to be turning to my right, in other words, if the airplane is off to my right, I'm going to want to put the signal mirror in my right hand. So as I turn, I'm not blocking the sunlight with this hand, whereas if I had my hand over here and turning to the right, eventually I'm going to turn far enough to where this is going to block off the sun. So whichever direction I turn, I want to have it in that hand. Now, regardless of where the sun is in the sky, I should be able to follow around 360 degrees, particularly if we're talking about a helicopter. If he thinks he sees you, he's going to start circling around. You want to continue to keep that signal mirror flash on the pilot as long as you can to ensure that he sees you.
Surviving out here pretty much boils down to this. If you can build a reasonably comfortable shelter that will protect you from the wind, the rain, and the snow, and you add the warmth of a small fire, you're not in a life-threatening situation. But let me add just one more trick. Inside of this small tinfoil pouch is one large cotton ball thoroughly saturated with Vaseline petroleum jelly. With my knife, I very carefully cut an X to within 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the pouch, and then fold each corner back to expose the contents. To form a wick, I use the pliers of my Leatherman Wave. Next, I shave off a small pile of pitchwood from the handle of my SOS fire starter and place them atop my wick. I have found that it is much easier to take a sliver of pitchwood and shave it down to the end to form a makeshift match. A couple of firm strokes down my mesh metal rod and I'm good to go. I know that several survival instructors claim that these Vaseline-soaked cotton balls can burn anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. I have discovered that they can burn for up to an hour when they're encased in these tinfoil pouches. The combination of pitchwood and cotton balls soaked with petroleum jelly is pretty much a surefire thing for getting that hard-to-start fire going, even in some of the worst weather conditions. When the shadows are as long as they're going to get, and the sun starts to disappear below the horizon, it's time to batten down the hatches and introduce you to a concept that is rarely taught in the survival business: building a small fire inside of your shelter. It just doesn't make sense to me. If a storm is raging on the outside, I certainly don't want to go out there in the storm and sit by a fire in an attempt to stay warm. I would much rather be on the inside where it's dry and warm, and I'm protected from the wind and the rain and the snow. And because a small fire on the inside is far better than a large fire on the outside, I won't have to spend nearly as much time gathering firewood. Here's what I believe. If you have to spend an unexpected night in the wilds, it doesn't have to be a life-threatening event for either you or your loved ones. If you practice the skills that I have taught you in this video and put together a small survival kit with the plastic bags, the duct tape, the zip ties, parachute cord, and a good fire starter, you can be right where I am now, confident that while you are waiting for the rescuers to find you, you won't be just surviving this experience. You'll be thriving instead.
All information contained in this video is the intellectual property of Gene Ward. Duplication or replication of this information in part or in whole for broadcast or financial gain is a copyright violation and will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.